Have a seat. Today's tea is bitter, but still sweeter than the price the villain in this story is about to pay. May's red ledger has just turned to a new page. Are you ready to claim justice with Reddit revenge tales?
Bedroom. 10:42 p.m. Our door is half closed when Barney reaches for the charger and the iPad wakes on the nightstand. One swipe. My thread with a friend explodes on the screen. A wink of flirty sounds dirty my name stamped under it. My gut screams this doesn't sit right. He looks at me. Do I say it was a joke? Or own it because I just crossed a line? I never said out loud. The house is quiet. The kids are out cold. And my heart is loud. If you've ever felt that icy rush over one tiny message, stay because it only gets realer from here. I am Veronica. I sell insurance for a living, which means I spend my days smiling, persuading keeping my voice steady, even when I am running on empty. We live in a busy pocket of Texas, where the grocery run turns into a schedule, and the school pickup line feels like a second job. I have 2 kids still young enough to fall asleep mid-sentence, and old enough to notice when their parents' energy shifts. My husband, Barney, manages the front desk at a hotel. He works nights more than he works daylight, and even when he drags himself home, he still tries to wrestle with the kids on the rug, like he has something to prove. We also have Lucia, our full-time help, and I am not too proud to admit she keeps our house from tipping over. That night in our bedroom with the screen glowing between us, I could feel how thin our normal really was. Barney did not yell. He just stared like he was counting the cost, and I knew the next thing I said would decide what kind of wife I was. Every February, my parents plan a snow trip. It started as their thing, then became our thing after I married Barney. The kids love it because it feels like a movie Snow Cocoa, everyone together. This year, my mom added one more name, like it was no big deal. Max. Max is my childhood friend. He knows my parents like family, the kind of person who used to show up in old pictures before life split everyone across states. His family moved to California years ago, and now he was back in Texas for a work trip, and my parents invited him along. I told myself it was harmless. But harmless does not make you hide your phone. Harmless does not make your stomach tighten when your husband walks into the room. And I was already doing both. On Monday, I was in my company cafeteria, sitting alone at a small table with a sad salad and a plastic fork that kept snapping. The microwave hummed behind me. Someone's laughter bounced off the tile walls, and I felt weirdly invisible in the middle of all that noise. My phone lit up with another client reminder, another follow-up, another little piece of my day that belonged to someone else. That's when my mom's message came through. She was finalizing the February snow trip details and asked if Max was still coming. I stared at the screen, then at the clock, then at my empty chair across from me. I told myself I was being responsible. Just logistics. Just keeping the tradition running. I texted Max the cabin info and arrival time. He answered fast friendly like it was the easiest thing in the world to be there for me. And I hated how my shoulders relaxed, because relief like that can make you careless, and I was already too tired to be careful. That little moment in the cafeteria followed me out to my car like a secret I couldn't shake. Later that day, I sat in my minivan in the school pickup line, the air conditioner blowing too cold on my hands, while my coffee went bitter in the cup holder. My work badge was still hanging from the mirror, swinging every time I tapped the brakes. Parents in front of me leaned out their windows, waving at kids looking like they had it together. I felt like I was faking it. Barney texted that he got pulled into another night shift. He wrote, "I will try to be home before they fall asleep." I believed him. I also felt that familiar sting, the one that says trying is not the same as being here. Max texted next. Nothing dramatic. Just, are the kids excited for the trip? And that was the problem. It felt easy. It felt warm. It felt like someone noticed me without needing anything from me first. I typed back too fast, smiling at my screen like it could hold me up, and my thumbs hovered over a line I knew I shouldn't cross. My thumbs did not hover for long. That is the ugliest truth. When you are tired enough, you start treating boundaries like optional rules for other people. I texted Max back with that stupid little half-joke, the kind that lets you pretend you did not mean it while still enjoying the attention. He replied right away, and it got flirty in the way that makes your stomach drop, even as you keep reading. A wink, a playful push. My name sitting under it like I signed something. I remember staring at the screen and thinking I should stop. I should shut this down. I should be the woman I claimed to be. Instead, I let it breathe. I let it live for one more message. Then my kid's teacher walked past my car window and waved, and I snapped the phone down like it was hot. That is when the guilt hit. Not dramatic guilt, just the quiet kind that follows you home. That night, Barney came in smelling like hotel coffee and clean linens. He kissed the top of my head and asked, "How was your day?" I said fine, and hated myself for how easy that lie felt. I kept choosing the easier quiet, and it kept buying me a few more hours of denial. On Sunday night, our bedroom looked normal. The kids were out cold down the hall. The ceiling fan clicked like it always did. Barney was a few feet from me, half sitting up, half falling asleep, rubbing his eyes the way he does after a long shift. My phone was face down on the dresser. The iPad sat on the nightstand plugged in like innocent. Barney said, "Your parents are excited about this trip. I want it to be good for the kids." I nodded too fast. Me too. He leaned in and kissed my forehead, gentle, familiar. For a second, I almost ruined my own secret by telling the truth. I didn't. I let the moment pass because I was scared of what would happen if I spoke. Barney reached toward the nightstand to grab his charger. His fingers brushed the iPad without thinking. I watched his hand land there and realized I was out of time. The screen glow from that night still lives behind my eyes, but what I remember most is the sound of my own voice answering before I planned it. Barney didn't yell. He didn't curse. He just held the iPad for a second, then looked at me like he was seeing a stranger wearing my face. The quiet between us was sharp. I sat up fast and forced myself not to grab for the device. That would have turned my mistake into a performance. I swallowed and said, "Before you decide what this is, I need to tell you the truth." Barney's voice stayed low. "Do not tell me this was nothing. I am not stupid." I nodded once. It started as a joke. I let it get flirty. That is on me. I crossed a line and I should have stopped it the first second it showed up. He stared past me toward the hallway where our kids slept, like he was checking what else my choices could reach. Then he looked back and asked, "Is there more than I saw?" And I felt my whole body go cold, because that question doesn't come from anger. It comes from fear. I could feel the next question coming, but Barney did not ask it right away. That was worse. He set the iPad back on the nightstand like it was dirty. Then he slid off the bed and stood there in his socks, staring at the floor. The ceiling fan kept clicking. Somewhere down the hall, one of the kids shifted in their sleep, completely unaware that the air in our bedroom had changed forever. Barney finally said, "I need a minute, Veronica. I cannot talk to you when I feel like I might say something I will regret." His voice was calm, but it was tight, like he was holding himself together with his teeth. I nodded and whispered, I understand, even though my whole body wanted to chase him and fix it in one breath. He did not slam a door. He did not curse. He just walked out of our room and stopped in the hallway for a second, staring at the kids' doors like he was checking that they were still safe. Then he turned toward the living room. I stayed in bed, staring at the dark screen of the iPad, hearing my own heartbeat, louder than the house. I told myself I would let him cool down. I told myself I was doing the right thing. But I also knew something ugly if he went quiet. It meant he was doing math in his head, adding up every moment I thought he did not notice. That night did not end with a fight. It ended with distance. And distance is how marriages die when nobody names it. The next morning I found Barney at the kitchen table with a mug of coffee. He was not drinking. The microwave clock blinked because someone had opened it and never closed it all the way. Lucia was in the other room packing lunches, and I could hear the soft crinkle of sandwich bags, like a reminder that life keeps moving, even when your chest feels stuck. I sat down across from him, keeping my hands flat on the table so I would not fidget. "I want to talk about what you saw," I said. "Not to explain it away, to tell you the truth and to fix what I broke." Barney looked up and held my gaze. "I felt blindsided," he said. "I felt like a fool in my own bed." That word fool hit me hard. I swallowed and said, "You are not a fool. I was careless, and I let something disrespectful happen." He asked, "Is there more than what I saw?" His voice didn't shake. Mine did, when I answered, "No. But I understand why you have to ask. We talked in plain sentences, no dramatic speeches, just two adults trying to keep a home from cracking. And when he finally said I need to see you shut it down with him, I knew the next step would have to be action, not promises. When Barney said he needed to see me shut it down, I understood something. This wasn't about me feeling sorry. It was about him feeling safe. Later that day, I waited until the house was busy enough to keep me steady. Lucia was in the kitchen, clinking dishes. The kids were arguing over a toy in the living room, and Barney was in the shower getting ready for another shift. I sat at the edge of our bed, with my phone in both hands, like it weighed 10 pounds. I opened Max's thread and stared at the last message until my eyes burned. Then I typed, slow on purpose, so I could not pretend it slipped out. "Max, we need to keep this respectful. No flirting, no jokes like that. Please only message me about the trip logistics, and keep it in the group chat." My finger hovered for 1 second, then I hit send. My stomach dropped. When Barney came out, towel on his shoulders, I handed him the phone without a speech. He read it jaw tight and said, "Thank you for doing that." He did not sound relieved. He sounded like a man bracing for the next test. His next test came quicker than I wanted, because life does not pause for healing. Sunday after service, we were in the church lobby with my parents and the kids, the air smelling like coffee and cheap pastries. People were laughing, chairs scraping, the kind of normal noise that makes private pain feel out of place. Barney stood close to me, not holding my hand, but not letting space open either. My mom was fussing with my daughter's coat zipper when Max walked in. I felt it in Barney's posture before I saw Max's face. Max smiled like everything was fine, like my text had been a small speed bump. He stepped toward us and said, "Hey, I am glad you all are coming. I missed this." I kept my voice steady. "Hi, Max. We are keeping things simple. Just trip details, okay?" His smile flickered. "Of course, I understand." Barney finally spoke calm but cold. That is what we need. Respectful and clear. Max nodded, and the moment passed, but it left a mark. On the drive home, my parents chatted about snow gear. The kids sang off key in the back seat, and Barney stared at the road like he was still reading that iPad screen. I knew we were not done paying for my mistake. Barney's silence on that drive home felt like he was replaying my mistake on a loop, looking for the moment it started. I could tell. He was not just mad about Max. He was scared of what Max represented. Later that week, after the kids were asleep, I found Barney in the laundry room folding towels he did not need to fold. The dryer buzzed, and he did not look up when I walked in. I leaned on the doorframe and said, "I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest, even if it hurts." He took a breath and said, "This reminds me of when we were dating." My stomach dropped. I stepped closer, but I did not touch him yet. "Tell me." He finally looked at me. "Back then we had hiccups. Things that made me feel like I was competing for your attention. I promised myself I would not live that way again." I nodded. Slowly. "I hear you. I do not want you living that way either." He set the towel down and said, "What I need is simple. I need to know you will not make me look foolish in my own home." I swallowed and said, "Then I have to show you, not just say it." And I knew the next few days would prove whether that was true. When Barney said he didn't want to look foolish, I felt it like a cold hand on my shoulder. It made every casual family moment feel like a test. I could fail. That Saturday night, we were at my parents' house for dinner. The dining room smelled like roast and sweet tea, and my dad kept turning the TV volume down between plays so he could talk. My mom set out extra plates like the table itself was a celebration. The kids ran in circles until Lucia caught them and guided them toward the bathroom to wash their hands. Max wasn't there, but his name was. My mom laughed and said, "Can you believe Max is back in Texas?" He used to follow Veronica around like a puppy. She meant it sweetly. It landed sharp. Barney's smile stayed in place, but I saw his jaw tighten. I reached under the table and pressed my fingertips against his hand, a quiet apology, with no audience. My dad said, "It'll be just like old times on this trip." I forced a small laugh, then cleared my throat. "It will be good for the kids, but we are keeping things simple this year." My mom blinked. Simple how Barney looked at me, waiting to see if I would protect our marriage in front of my own parents, or protect their comfort instead. Barney's eyes on me at that table felt like a timer counting down. If I protected my mom's comfort, I would be choosing the easy version of myself again. That same Saturday night, we were still in my parents' dining room plates, clinking my dad's fork, scraping against ceramic, my mom standing by the counter refilling iced tea. The kids were noisy in the next room, and I could hear Lucia gently telling them to use their inside voices. Barney sat to my right shoulders, tight, staring at his napkin, like it was safer than my face. My mom asked Simple how, and the room went quiet in that very American way, where nobody says quiet, they just wait. I took a breath and said, "Mom, Max is family to you. I get that. But Barney and I are keeping boundaries. Max can come, but everything stays respectful, and nothing private. I need you to support that." My mom blinked like I had slapped the air. "Veronica, are you saying Max did something I didn't let her turn it into gossip?" I looked at Barney and said, "I am saying I did. I was careless, and I am fixing it." Barney's hand finally covered mine under the table, and I knew the next test would be digital. Not dinner. After I said it out loud in my parents' house, I couldn't hide behind misunderstandings anymore. I had drawn a line in public, which meant I had to live it in private. A couple of days later, my phone buzzed while I was standing at the kitchen sink, rinsing a sticky kid's cup. Lucia was wiping the counter nearby, humming softly, and the refrigerator made that low motor sound that fills a house when nobody is talking. It was the family group chat about the trip. Cabin address, who's bringing what time everyone wanted to leave. Max replied with a joke that wasn't filthy, but it was familiar. Too familiar. I felt that old impulse to smooth it over to keep the vibe light to be the fun one. Then I remembered Barney's word foolish, and my stomach tightened. Barney walked in tired from work and asked, "What is that?" I held the phone out and said, "It is the group chat. I'm keeping everything here. Nothing private." He read for a second and then said, "I need you to loop me in, not because I want to police you, but because I need to stop guessing." So I added him right there in front of Lucia, in front of the sink, in front of my own pride. And the moment I hit add, I realized the real fight was not Max. It was my habit of keeping doors half closed. Adding Barney to that group chat felt like closing a door. I should have shut a long time ago. I thought that would calm things down. It didn't. It just set the stage for the kind of humiliation you can't unsee. Later that week, we were in our living room in Texas, early evening, packing for the trip. My parents were there. The kids were bouncing between piles of jackets, and Lucia was kneeling by an open suitcase folding clothes into neat stacks, like she could fold the tension too. The TV was on low, some game show noise in the background. The iPad sat on the coffee table beside a roll of packing tape. I was taping a box of snacks when it happened. A loud ping cut through the room. The iPad lit up bright, and for 1 second the whole message preview was right there for anyone to read. From Max. A funny little meme, the kind that plays cute with the same dirty energy as before. My mom paused mid-sentence. My dad's eyebrows lifted. Barney didn't move at all. He just stared at the screen, like he was watching our marriage get dragged into the light. I grabbed the iPad so fast my fingernails scraped the glass. I hit mute, my hands shaking. Barney turned, walked to the front door, and stepped outside without a word. I followed, because if I let him stay alone with that, I might lose him. When Barney walked out, the house kept breathing like nothing happened. That made it worse. It was like everyone could move on, but we couldn't. A few minutes later, I found him in our garage. Late evening, the overhead light buzzing and throwing that hard white glow on everything. Barney stood near the workbench, with his back half turned to me, keys in his fist, jaw tight. I stopped just inside the doorway, close enough to speak far enough to not corner him. From the kitchen door, I could still hear Lucia telling the kids to pick a stuffed animal for the trip. Normal life, 5 feet away. Barney finally said, "Your parents saw that. Our kids are in this house. You made me look stupid." I felt the words hit my ribs. I didn't argue. I didn't cry on purpose. I just nodded and said, "You are right." I let it get to a place it never should have reached. He looked at my hands. "Do something real, Veronica. Not another promise." So I did. I took the iPad out right there under that buzzing light. I opened the thread with Max, held it where Barney could see, and I pressed delete. Then I blocked notifications and blocked his number. My finger didn't hesitate this time. Barney exhaled like he had been holding his breath for days. Then he said, quiet and cold, "Now we are going to talk about why you needed him in the first place." When Barney said, "Now we are going to talk about why you needed him," I felt exposed in a way deleting a thread could not fix. Blocking Max was a clean cut. This was going to be messy. That same night we ended up back in our kitchen, the house finally quiet. The only sound was the ice maker clicking and the faint whir of the dishwasher. Barney stood by the sink, arms crossed, looking like he was still deciding whether he could trust my next breath. I sat at the table with a pen I didn't even remember grabbing, staring at a blank scrap of paper from the junk drawer. Barney said, "I'm not asking to control you. I'm asking you to stop leaving doors half open." I nodded and told him the truth I hated hearing out loud. I liked feeling noticed. I was tired and selfish, and I used that attention like a shortcut. He didn't soften, but he didn't walk away either. He slid the paper toward me and said, "Write what we are doing from here, so there is no confusion." Later, I wrote a few plain lines. No private messages. No flirty jokes. Everything stays in the group chat. Evening stay for our home. Barney read it, then pressed his thumb on the paper like a signature. We taped it to the fridge. It wasn't romantic. It was necessary. And it still didn't answer one question. What was Max going to do when I took my warmth away? Walking away from Max in that parking lot later became one of the hardest things I've ever done. Because he didn't react like a respectful friend. He reacted like someone who thought he had a claim. The next Sunday after service, the lot was loud with car doors and shopping carts rattling on the asphalt. Barney was a few steps behind me with the kids and Lucia. Max stood by his car scrolling his phone like he had all the time in the world. I stepped in front of him and said, "Max, listen. You crossed a line with me and I let it happen. That ends now. No private messages. If it's about the trip, it goes in the group chat." He tried to laugh. "Veronica, it was just jokes. I didn't blink. Do not call it jokes." His face tightened. "Come on. You were fine with it when you were texting back. You're going to act like I'm the problem now." That sentence hit like a slap because it tried to rewrite the truth. It tried to make my boundary sound fake. Barney's voice came in calm and flat. "She is protecting her marriage. You will respect that." Max took a half step toward me. I lifted my hand palm out and stopped him in place. "This is not up for debate." I turned and walked away first because I needed him to learn something simple and final. Access to me was never his to assume. Walking away from Max in that parking lot felt strong for about 10 minutes. Then the adrenaline drained, and all I could feel was the weight of what I'd almost wrecked. That night, we were back in our bedroom, just me and Barney. The house quiet except for the soft rattle of the ceiling fan and the distant hum of the air conditioner. He sat on the edge of the bed with his hands clasped, staring at the carpet like it had answers. I stood by the dresser holding my phone, not scrolling, not hiding, just holding it. I said, "I do not want you guessing any more. If you ever feel that panic again, ask me. I will answer. If you want my passcode, you can have it." My voice sounded steadier than I felt. Barney finally looked up. "I do not want to be the husband who polices his wife," he said. "I want a wife who doesn't put me in that position." That one sentence cut clean. I nodded. "Then you will see it in my choices." Before he left for work, I forwarded him the short message I'd sent Max, and the group chat thread, no commentary, no defense. Barney read it, then set the phone down and said, "Keep doing it like this." The way he said it told me trust was not back yet, but it was watching. When Barney said keep doing it like this, it wasn't forgiveness. It was a narrow bridge. I knew I had to meet him there before the next crack showed up. Later that week, I asked him to sit with me at the kitchen table after the kids were asleep. Lucia had already gone home, and the only light was the one over the stove, warm but unforgiving. The dishwasher ran in the background, steady like a metronome. Barney sat across from me, shoulders slumped, eyes tired from another long shift, but he stayed. I said, "I need to tell you the part I hate admitting. I liked the attention, because I have been lonely in my own life. Not lonely for a man. Lonely for my husband. He didn't interrupt. He just listened, jaw-working like he was swallowing something bitter. I told him about the mental load, how I felt like I was always the one remembering everything, carrying everything, smiling through it. I said, "When you are gone at night, I start acting like I do not need you." And that is a lie. Barney's eyes got wet. "I thought providing was enough," he said. "I thought you were fine." I reached across the table slow and he let me take his hand. We didn't solve everything, but for the first time in a while we were facing the same direction, and I could feel the next test coming. When Barney let me take his hand, it felt like a fragile yes. But I also knew trust does not rebuild in a quiet conversation. It rebuilds the next time something could go wrong. Later that week, I was in my kitchen in the late afternoon, standing by the counter with Lucia a few feet behind me, packing the kids' snacks into little containers. The fridge door squeaked every time one of the kids opened it to check what was inside. My phone buzzed against the granite, a hard little rattle that made my shoulders jump. It was the family group chat. My parents were firing off questions about departure time, who was bringing the hot chocolate packets, which car had room for the cooler. Max replied, and for a split second, my stomach tightened waiting for that familiar, too cute tone. But he didn't do it. He kept it plain. He answered the question. Nothing extra. Barney was at the doorway watching without hovering. I showed him the screen anyway, then set my phone back down and kept slicing fruit, like I was proving something to myself. Barney nodded once. "That is how it needs to be," he said. I wanted to believe we were past the worst, but the real test was coming with suitcases and snow boots. The chat staying clean should have calmed me down. Instead, it made me realize something colder. It was easy to behave when everyone could see. The hard part would be the trip itself. Saturday morning, we were in our driveway in Texas, all of us half awake loading the minivan, while the kids bounced in their coats like they were made of springs. Lucia stood near the trunk with a clipboard-sized list in her hand, calling out gloves, hats, meds like she had done this 100 times. The garage door groaned as it lifted, and the sound felt like the start of something. I couldn't pause. Barney slid the last suitcase in and shut the trunk with a flat thud. He looked at me and said, "I want this to be good for the kids. I also need to know you are not going to drift when I am not looking." I held his gaze. "You will not have to guess," I said. "If Max talks to me, it will be where you can see it. If I feel tempted to be cute, I will stop myself." We pulled out my parents' car behind us, and a few miles later I spotted Max's vehicle in the flow of traffic. My phone stayed face down in the console, but my mind wouldn't. After the drive, after the nerves, after all that pretending I was steady, I learned something about boundaries. They only matter when they cost you something in the moment. Later that night at the lodge, the air smelled like wet coats and cocoa. My parents were laughing with the kids at the table. Lucia dabbed at a spill with a napkin. Barney stood close beside me near the fireplace, close enough that our shoulders almost touched. Someone pulled up old photos on a phone, everyone leaning in. Max stepped closer and slid in one of those double-meaning comments, not graphic, just suggestive enough to test the door. I didn't smile. I lifted my hand palm out. "Max, do not talk to me like that. Keep it respectful." The room paused. My dad cleared his throat. My mom blinked like she finally saw the shape of the tension she'd been ignoring. Max nodded stiff. Barney didn't speak. He just shifted closer, his hand brushing my back once steady. Then my mom leaned toward me and said low enough that nobody else heard Veronica, Is everything okay with you and Barney? I opened my mouth, and the lie almost came out automatically. That question from my mom followed me home like a shadow. I could still hear her voice in my head, soft and worried, because it meant she saw it too. She finally noticed the crack. A few days after we got back to Texas, it was early evening and the sky was fading fast. Barney and I walked our cul-de-sac, while the kids were inside with Lucia cartoon sound leaking through the front door whenever it opened. Gravel crunched under our shoes. A neighbor's sprinkler clicked on somewhere down the street. Barney said, "When I saw that iPad, I felt small, like I was the last person to know my own wife. I stopped walking. I faced him. You were not last," I said. "You were the one I avoided because you mattered most. And I hated myself for that." He held my gaze. "Do you still want this us?" I didn't answer with a speech. I reached for his hand first. "Yes. But I cannot keep living like I don't need you. And you cannot keep living like showing up is optional." His fingers tightened around mine. Not gentle, not angry. Just sure. We kept walking slower, and I finally understood what my mom was really asking. Not, "Are you okay?" She was asking, "Are you going to protect your home before it's too late?" I used to think cheating had to look dramatic. A hotel room, a secret life, something you could point to and say, "That's it. That's the moment." But for me, it started with something smaller and uglier, a need I didn't name, and a boundary I didn't set. One flirty line turned into a crack, and that crack almost let strangers watch my marriage bleed. Here's what I learned the hard way. If you have to hide it, it's not harmless. If you would be sick to hear it read out loud in your bedroom at night, it doesn't belong in your phone. Attention feels good, but it is a cheap replacement for being truly known by the person you built a home with. "And I'm tired" is not an excuse to hand your softness to someone who didn't earn it. The fix wasn't a speech. It was choices. Clear words. Doors closed all the way. Not to control each other, but to protect what's real. If this story hit, you ask yourself one honest question. What door in your life is still half open, and who is paying the price? Comment. I see it if you've been there. All right. Let May be painfully clear. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a pattern, and it showed up fast. A stranger asked you something stupid at a bar, you said no, and Mark turned you from wife to suspect. That's red flag number 1, suspicion. Without proof. Then he started the classic toxic combo, moving the goalpost, demanding the truth after you already gave it, and treating your calm as evidence. That's not concern. That's control wearing a suit. And when someone blocks the exit, when your "I need air" becomes "Why are you running?" that's not love. That's a power test. The moment he rewrote the story, you pushed me, you escalated. That's gaslighting 1. Oh, 1. Not loud, not messy, just cold. Tidy cruelty. So here's your takeaway straight up. Your no is a full sentence. You don't audition for basic respect. You don't negotiate reality with someone who benefits from you doubting yourself. If you're hearing this and your stomach drops, trust that. Red flags don't get greener with time. To the villain of this story, karma doesn't need your permission. It just keeps receipts. And to you, sweetheart, this debt, May clears it. But remember, these eyes are always watching. Don't let your name end up on May's blacklist next episode. Hit subscribe, because around here, justice doesn't show up late. It shows up ready. A final note from the library. While these stories find their roots in the halls of Reddit, they are artistically reimagined to speak to the heart. Any likeness to reality is mere coincidence. The emotions, however, are very real. Walk with empathy and let justice lead the way. Thank you for watching.